Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 90. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about painting, modeling, and working experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. How could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week there's lots to talk about: the new Aegis defense line from Games Workshop, some models I finished, and my newfound love of texture rollers. But first I want to talk about this video's sponsor, Audible. I love Audible. I've been using their service for years and years and years, and actually I just checked my Audible library and I have exactly 69 books. So I guess I have to stop now. I can't let that number go any higher or lower. And I've actually listened to 47 of them, which is a lot better than I thought it would have been. If you have any interest in trying out Audible, you can follow our link in the description below to get a 30-day free trial and a free audiobook, and it helps support the channel. And speaking of the channel, a few weeks back, I put out a video all about the Aegis defense line, the old, great Aegis defense line, one of the best model kits that Games Workshop ever made. Sure, it was very simple and not incredibly detailed, but it was just perfect. If you had that set, it was the best thing you could have on the board. And Games Workshop has just made a new one. I've heard that it takes Games Workshop about 2 years to get a model from like a concept to the store shelves, but I like to think that they saw my video from a few weeks ago and decided to churn this model out. I'm sure that's exactly what happened. The new Aegis defense line is kind of the same as the old one, but also kind of completely different. And I think it's pretty good. It doesn't have the charm of the old Aegis defense line. I don't know if it possibly could, because that was a kit that was available for like 15 years, where this is a new thing. But I think it looks pretty good. And actually it's a kind of an interesting combination of the Aegis defense line and the old Wall of Martyrs terrain kits. And this new kit is basically a combination of the two. It doesn't come with a gun, which is a little bit annoying because, I mean, that was one of the classic things of the old Aegis defense line. But I really like this. I think it looks nice. I think they did a really clever thing where they took the shapings of the armor to actually turn it into the Aquila, and which makes a lot of sense and it looks really neat. And I do like the platform. The platform is a really nice touch. It gives a little bit of elevation, and it's always nice when models can really interact with a piece of terrain, and just the act of taking a model and then placing it on the slightly raised platform just adds a little bit more fun. I think that this will work really well if you want to buy multiple copies and have trenches and with these little pillbox sections. I think it's pretty darn good, and I'll be really interested to see the actual sprues because it looks like each individual wall section is gonna have like spikes on the side, and it looks like you either cut off those spikes and glue it, or you stab those spikes into these column connection pieces. And so I would really like to know how those connection pieces work, because if they just slot in, I think it's great. But if it's anything like the Into the Dark terrain, where you kind of have to like finagle it in and then put on like a retention cap or glue it, I think it's gonna be kind of annoying, especially since the old Aegis was so perfect where you literally just line the pieces up and it looks seamless, where this, it might have to do a tiny bit of monkeying. I always prefer less monkeying, but I like it. I think it looks nice. I think it's a good successor to the Aegis, and it better be super, super cheap. Because the old Aegis was like 35 bucks, which was still very expensive. Probably too much, maybe $25 or $20 would have been a better price. But the great thing about the Aegis was like anybody could buy it, and it provided a good amount of terrain for your board. You know, you could make a small bunker, or you can, you know, separate the pieces out and kind of cover almost a quarter of the board, maybe a little bit less, but that's a good amount of stuff. Where I'd be nervous if this is like $50 or $60 for a wall. It's just not going to have the same impact. Kind of like their Tau terrain, which they actually do show off in this article, I guess explaining that they also have Tau terrain and Orc terrain. But the Tau terrain is really, really pretty and really, really expensive. So I don't see that much out in the world, because as cool as terrain is, it's not models. And I think everybody should spend their hobby dollars on models. So yeah, new Aegis, very, very cool. And I do like that I was the one who inspired Games Workshop to make this new Aegis defense line. That is definitely exactly what happened. And speaking of things that I painted recently in videos, I have been staring at this, what is her name? Markovian, Malka Marbonap, the limited edition Soul Blight Blade Vampire Lord that Games Workshop made this year. I really, really love the color scheme that I went with for this model, but also am in love with this base. This base was very, very simple to make, and it was very fun to make. And it's just a Green Stuff World texture roller with milliput laid on top of cork. And so I get a little bit of height from the cork, and then I get the awesome texture from the Green Stuff roller. And I was even able to cut out some of the bricks and kind of repose them just a little bit. It was really simple and it was really satisfying. And it really makes me excited to try out a bunch more bases. I actually bought like all of the texture rollers from Green Stuff World because previously I only had like 2. But I really think it's a great way to get awesome textured bases. Bases for wargaming models are really, really tricky, and it also can be very frustrating to build like dozens and dozens and dozens and keep them consistent throughout an army. And I tend to just do like a little pitcher's mound. I do a little bit of either milliput or maybe a little bit of sand and super glue or Crayola Model Magic soft squishy modeling material. Because I think having a little bit of mound of material makes the model look really attractive from a lot of different angles. If you do the classic Games Workshop, just like a Grelin earth and a grass tuft, the model looks pretty good from the typical height, like looking down at the model from a table, but it doesn't look very good when you look at the model front on because the base kind of vanishes. But if you do have a little bit of mound, if you do have a little bit of height to that base, all of a sudden your viewing angles get a lot bigger. And so I'm really looking forward to trying out a bunch of these texture rollers and probably combining them with some epic basing bits and just trying to get really, really good, interesting bases, because if the base of your model is pretty darn good, I think it elevates the model a lot. Like I have some models that are absolutely gorgeous, in my opinion, and the bases are just kind of whatever. And so the base is not adding anything to that model, where this, you know, if the base is almost better than the miniature, I think it gives the whole thing of it a huge leg up. And I like basing. If you can imagine, we have 80 basing videos on the channel, actually over 80 basing videos on the channel, but I'm always discovering new little things because as fun as bases are and as cool as bases are, you don't want to spend ages basing your model. You know, you don't want to spend ages defense lines worth of time building the bases for your miniatures, because whenever I get a box, I'm like really jonesing to actually get paint on there. And so I want to put it together and clean the mold lines and get it primed and ready to go as quickly as possible. And so anytime I find a basing system that lets me do a really good job really, really quickly, I get really excited. So yeah, Green Stuff World texture rollers. I mean, I've done it on my Sisters of Battle before, although I glued the milliput directly to the plastic base. And I found that really, really hard to do because I would crush the texture roller detail into the milliput, and then I had to kind of wait like a half an hour for it to start to firm up, and then I went back in with a hobby knife and kind of scraped away the stuff that had stuck to the rims of the plastic base, where the cork provided a nice separation, so I didn't have to do any cleaning to the rim of the base. And it kind of makes it look like this is literally torn from a chunk of castle, where if it was just sitting directly on the base, you get that awkward situation of like, well, where does the edge of this base terminate? Do I carve it with the edge of a hobby knife and then sand it perfectly smooth and then paint the black on the sides of some of the bricks so that it's a little bit more like a digital cross section where like you Boolean deleted the rest of the base, or where this is a little bit more like whimsical and fantastic, where it's literally torn from the edge of a castle, and I left the cork black, and I think it works really, really nicely. Your brain just kind of interprets what's going on, and I'm really excited to keep giving this a try with some different stuff. I don't know exactly what I would do for a more mechanical or industrial type of base texture, because the cork wouldn't really make a lot of sense for that. Maybe if I put some like rebar coming out of it like it's concrete, but I would like to find something else to make like a really industrial looking edge of the base, kind of like the sides of the Millennium Falcon. Like you got the top and the bottom, and then you've got just those greebling texture around the inside perimeter. So maybe I got to find something a little bit like that to do more industrial 40K sci-fi bases. But yeah, I love a good base. And speaking of models that aren't based, I actually finished a unit this week. Well, actually, I didn't finish a unit. There is a 7th guy who I am waiting to paint on camera. Wink, wink. Maybe the patrons will see that as a painting PDF guide very soon. But these are the Shore Troopers from Star Wars Legion, from Rogue One, one of my favorite Star Wars movies. And I struggled with these guys quite a bit. I'm trying to teach myself how to make washes just as good as Games Workshop used to. I actually haven't tried the new Games Workshop washes, and I have a feeling I actually would have had a lot of success with the new Games Workshop washes, because what I've heard is that they're a little bit thinner, and they seep into the recesses a lot more, and they don't stain the surfaces of models as much. I love Agrax Earthshade and Null Oil kind of because they stain the surfaces, and so just the way I've been using them for like the last 10 years is with that staining in mind. But I should get some new pots and see exactly how the new ones operate. But I also just want to be able to make my own washes just so that I have a little bit of freedom. And so on every single one of these guys, I tried out a different recipe of a black wash, and they all ended up really dark and gritty. It didn't have that perfect slide into the recesses, but be not patchy, and just it wasn't exactly like Games Workshop's paint. And so I was thinking, do I strip these guys and try again? I hate stripping models, but I also hate things not going exactly my way in the painting system. But then I thought, no, you know what? I should just keep on going and fix what I've done instead of going backwards. And so I decided I did a classic slap chop. A bunch of people just got triggered because I said slap chop. Slap chop obviously isn't anything new, but it is nice to actually have a word that everybody knows to put to that style of painting. And so I dry brushed them all with white, and then I put on a bunch of Army Painter Speed Paint, which is lovely. I love Army Painter Speed Paint. It does a great job with very low effort, and I think they turned out pretty darn good. They are a little bit dark, probably because of that black wash I put on. What I really wanted that black wash to do was just give me a nice defined black line in every recess and corner of the armor, so that when I applied the Army Painter Speed Paints, I would get a really, really harsh line in all of those gaps. And it worked out pretty good, but because of the incredible amount of staining I got from my own homemade wash, the dry brushing was definitely necessary to get some places of the model back up to white so that I could put on the contrast and have it look nice. I really do like the Shore Troopers. I love that the Empire has a brand new set of armor for every single situation. I mean, there's Space Troopers, there's Aqua Troopers, there's Sand Troopers, there's Snow Troopers. Every single biome you can think of. I'm sure they have Felucia Troopers and Mustafar Troopers. For any different planet, they're like, all right, we got to go right back to the drawing board and engineer a brand new thing, because apparently Stormtrooper armor is only appropriate for the Death Star, and in every other situation, we need to create a brand new type of armor. But I think the Show Troopers are a really fun thing. And in Star Wars Legion, I'm very excited to have them because they have the E22 reciprocating double barrel blaster rifle, not to be confused with the lame E11 that the normal Stormtroopers carry. So they're just a little bit better than Stormtroopers, and so they should add a nice little accent to my Stormtrooper Horde Star Wars Legion Imperial Army. Also, they took a very long time to paint because these are very colorful Stormtroopers. They each have their little accents and these little bands that go on their pauldrons. So not a quick paint job, but I'm pretty satisfied with the results. And I will get them based up very soon, I promise. Another exciting thing that happened to me this week was I actually have a memory for this episode of Models and Memories. This show's called Models and Memories because I used to talk about the things, objects, toys, and models that are very meaningful to me and that I have a story to go along with them. But over the course, I think in the 50s, I had shown off every single object that I own that has any meaning to me. And so I had to stop doing the memory part of the models. They come up every now and again, but this week I was at a bookstore, a used bookstore that also had some other toys and games and stuff. And I found this. This is a model kit of a Star Wars B-Wing from Return of the Jedi. And this model I have not seen in a very long time. So one day my dad took me to a hobby shop and he would let me pick out a model. And so I'm looking at the shelves and they have trains and tanks and a smattering of some other stuff, but they had one of these hanging from the ceiling tiles in the store. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a B-Wing. That's the B-Wing from Return of the Jedi. It's a really, really cool spaceship. And I asked the store owner if he had one, and he said he didn't have any, but he could order me one if I wanted. But being a dumb little kid who had no patience whatsoever, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna wait like a week or two. That might as well be next year. I want a model kit right now. And so I think I bought like an F-14 Tomcat, and then I took it home and put it together with hot glue and just completely ruined it. And I just kind of forgot about this B-Wing that I had seen in the store. And then all of a sudden I saw it on the shelves of that used bookstore, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to have it. I actually bought a lot of Star Wars and just model kits in general when I was a little kid, and I ruined all of them. Model kits are actually really, really hard to do. And actually, in the very first episode of Models and Memories ever, I had a similar story where my dad had bought me Anakin Skywalker's pod racer from The Phantom Menace. That kit I like put together almost one engine, used a little bit of the awful paint that it came with, and just completely destroyed it. But later, I actually bought that model kit again and then put it together perfectly. And it's one of my prized possessions. And so I kind of want to do something a little bit similar with this. It's like a lost memory. The model kit that I almost had, and it was this one. It was the limited edition, like coppery gold plated B-Wing. It's super dumb. I think maybe the B-Wing didn't sell very well, and so that's why they decided to reprint it in gold. I think they did the same thing with Luke's X-Wing, and I assume that sold really well, but you can actually still find these here and there. There's also a really, really nice, not Tamiya, Bandai. A few years ago, Bandai made a B-Wing. I should have bought it. Maybe I'm still gonna buy it, because the Bandai model kits are beautiful. They're very, very detailed. I have some of their Stormtroopers and some of their 1/77 scale vehicles, which is great because they're like that big. They're pretty small. They sit on a desk really nicely, and they have every single detail from the movie. Where this thing it's decent, but it's pretty bad when it comes to like movie accurate. I mean, it's got like the general shape and proportions, but I'm tempted. I'm tempted to just put this together as is and maybe hang it from the ceiling like I remember it in that hobby shop, and then actually buy the Bandai model kit and then build that one perfectly. It's also a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit more swooshable. I think this one is like 7 inches long, which is a little much for a toy. I always like it when I can like easily see the entire model in my hand, as opposed to like holding on to this big thing. And I don't know, they don't make this anymore. It would kind of be a shame to prime over the metallized parts. Like, put it together and it's all shiny and gold, and then just spray paint it black and then airbrush on gray. It'd be kind of sad. I don't know if I can do that. I think I might have to keep this perfectly as is, not in the box, like take it out and play with it and have a good time, because that's what you're supposed to do. But I don't know if I have it in me to fix this. Also, that Anakin Skywalker's pod racer, I believe, was made by the same company, and it sucked. Like, trying to get that model super accurate to the movie, I had to do like a lot of milliputting and plastic hard work. And so instead of doing that work, maybe I just buy a different B-Wing model kit that is already really good. Have this on the shelf as just an embodiment of my childhood. Because that's really my goal, is just to correct every wrong from when I was a little child, to fix every dumb decision that tiny little Jay made. Oh boy, there's a lot. But yeah, Golden B-Wing. What are the odds? What are the odds that this model would just turn up in my life again? But yeah, kind of fun. But you know what I love even more than nostalgia? That's right, our Patreon. Over there, we have new terrain packs available monthly. This month, we have the Wasteland cars, ready to do donuts around your game boards. And to new patrons, we have a welcome pack that includes Dawn of War inspired Space Marine, Imperial Guard, and Eldar terrain, all hosted by Comics, Games, and Things. We also make weekly exclusive videos reviewing our patrons' models and host weekly Discord hangouts. And we have a new tier where you can join the ranks of my Black Templar Space Marine and join the likes of Grim Batos, the Tactical Marine, or Duster, the Assault Marine. It has been a very fun week of wargaming, and I cannot wait to open up this box and just see that gold. In fact, you know what? We're doing it. We're doing it, folks. Man, 20-year-old cellophane is really strong. I actually can't get it open. it's really shiny. Interesting. Oh my god, even the pilot is chromed. Hopefully the canopy isn't chromed. Oh yeah, it looks like C-3PO. I could not prime over this. I would never be able to forgive myself. Yes, and the canopy is clear plastic. Ooh, and it actually comes with an X-Wing cockpit, probably because they reuse this piece over and over. All right, I'm gonna go put this together. Bye.